All right, settle in. Because what I'm about to tell you isn't just a story about property lines or HOA drama. It's a real slice of my life with more twists than a cheap garden hose and just as many kinks. You ever wake up thinking it's just another Tuesday, but by lunchtime you're staring out your window at a bulldozer digging up your land? Yeah. Welcome to my world. So here's the hook. 6 months ago, I inherited this acre-and-a-half lot from my late uncle. It's right next to my place, just grass, some old oak trees, nothing to catch the eye. Folks passing by probably think it's wasted space. What they don't know is for years I'd been dreaming of building a woodworking shop out there, maybe lining the edge with fruit trees. You know, the kind of plans you make over a cup of coffee telling yourself someday. Well, someday had finally shown up. First order of business, get a survey done. High precision GPS, stakes in the ground, $3,000 down the drain, but I wanted everything clear. My surveyor, a crusty old guy who'd seen every property dispute in the book, warned me boundaries are always a mess around here. Buddy, you don't know the half of it. Enter the HOA, or more specifically the board president. Let's call her Miss Supreme Ruler, because that's how she acts. She's one of those folks who thinks the HOA is her private kingdom. I swear if you painted your mailbox eggshell instead of ivory, she'd be at your door before the paint dried, citation in hand. And she hated my empty lot with a passion, calling it an eyesore, as if a few oaks and some wild grass could crash the housing market. I figured I'd let it sit until I'd saved enough for my workshop. No harm, no foul. That all blew up one Tuesday morning, late September. I was on my second cup of coffee just watching the sunrise when I heard this rumble, deep, low. Not a garbage truck, but something that meant business. I peeked outside and almost choked. There on my lot was a full-blown construction crew. We're not talking a couple guys with shovels. We're talking hard hats, a bright yellow excavator already chewing a trench right through my land fence posts going up. 6, maybe 7 guys out there moving like they owned the place. The smell of diesel hit me before I even got my shoes on. I stormed outside, caught the foreman, a guy who looked like he'd spent his whole life in steel-toed boots. He shows me this official work order stamped by the HOA board, laying out plans for a community pool, changing rooms, a whole leisure center. And the kicker, it claimed my lot was community common space per the HOA bylaws. I pointed out my brand new survey stakes and told him he was standing on private property. He looked genuinely shocked, said the HOA had hired his crew for a neighborhood amenity. I didn't lose my cool. Instead, I pulled out my phone and started snapping photos, work order, crew license plates, my stakes, time-stamped evidence, you name it. Next step, I called the board president. She picked up with that fake, sweet voice, you know the type. I told her about the construction, and she actually said, "You should be thanking us. We're boosting your property values. Lady, if I wanted a pool, I'd have dug one myself." When I reminded her about my deed and the fresh survey she got, all legalese, claimed their ancient bylaws let them seize underutilized easements for community projects. I asked about city permits. Suddenly, she's vague. That's being handled. Translation, no permits, not a one. Now this is where most folks might blow up, maybe try to block the equipment. But me, I spent the next 4 hours gathering everything, my deed, survey, those photos, anything showing the work was on my land, not the HOA's. Then I marched down to the HOA office, asked for a copy of their bylaws, shocked the gal at the desk. I can tell you, and sat in my truck reading every line. Surprise. Their bylaws only let them maintain existing easements, not build new structures or seize private land. No mention of pools, nothing. But here's the twist, the one nobody saw coming while I'm online reading up on city ordinances. I stumble across environmental regulations. See, if you disturb the soil without proper erosion controls or work without permits, there are fines that rack up by the day, plus immediate stop work orders. Suddenly, I realized I had more leverage than I thought. So next morning, right when City Hall opened, I was there, documents in hand. The city inspector, a tough, no-nonsense woman, didn't even finish her coffee before she had a stop work order drafted and called the sheriff for backup. Less than 2 hours later, a white city truck and a sheriff's cruiser pulled up to the site. The inspector stuck a giant orange stop work sticker on the excavator, and just like that, the crew started packing up. By lunchtime, all that was left was a torn-up lot and a few confused workers. That afternoon, the board president called me. No sweet voice this time. She was spitting mad, accusing me of sabotaging her community improvement. I told her what the city told me they'd have to remediate the mess at their expense. She tried to bargain, offering me reduced HOA fees if I just let them finish. Then when that didn't work, she straight up threatened me. If you don't cooperate, the HOA can make things complicated. That's the moment I stopped taking her calls and started calling lawyers. The next few days were tense. Then out of the blue, the HOA's attorney reached out. Offered me generous compensation for an easement, said the pool would boost my home's value. I shut him down politely but firmly. That's when the threats started. The HOA has deep pockets. Legal battles get expensive. You know the drill. What they didn't realize was I'd been reading up on HOA law all weekend, learning that if a board member acts outside their authority, they can be personally liable for damages. And the construction company, turns out they weren't about to eat a $60,000 contract. Their project manager tracked me down and showed me the HOA's contract signed, sealed with a penalty clause for misrepresentation. They planned to sue the HOA for breach of contract plus damages. Things were about to get real messy real fast. Around then, a neighbor called. She'd heard about the pool and asked if the rumors were true. I laid out the facts. She went quiet, then told me the board president had already pushed through a special assessment, $300 from each homeowner, to pay for the project. She'd promised everyone that permits were in place pool by summer. Now, not only was there no pool, but a lawsuit and fines were looming. Weeks went by. Lawsuit got filed. The city environmental inspector came out, took soil samples, documented erosion. The HOA was ordered to fix the site, reseed, install erosion barriers. Price tag $15,000 due in 60 days or the fines would start rolling. Then came the emergency HOA meeting. The board president tried to spin the story, blaming me, downplaying the costs, suggesting maybe they could settle with the contractor or move the pool. But other board members weren't having it. Someone pointed out that the insurance wouldn't cover unauthorized work on private property. When a real estate-savvy neighbor explained that board members could be personally liable, the room got real quiet. Calls for her resignation started almost immediately. A couple days later, the attorney called again, this time much humbler. He offered full remediation, a privacy fence, all costs covered if I'd agree not to sue. I had one condition, a written public apology from the board president printed in the next HOA newsletter. 3 days later, deal accepted. The landscaping company came in, filled the trench, planted 12 mature pine trees for privacy, and put up a 6-foot cedar fence. By the end, my lot looked better than ever, like a park, honestly. And the HOA, they ended up settling the construction company lawsuit out of court. Word around the block is they had to take out a loan to pay it. Homeowner dues shot up, and the apology letter hit mailboxes, full admission, the board president stepping down effective immediately. She all but vanished from the neighborhood after that. Here's the moment that stuck with me a few months later. I was out back laying out plans for my workshop when I saw the ex-president pause at my new fence. She just stood there looking at the lot that used to be her eyesore, now the greenest patch on the block. Didn't say a word, just kept walking. So what did I learn? 1, don't let anyone bully you out of your rights, no matter how official they sound. 2, always keep receipts, document everything. And 3, sometimes the universe hands out a little karma served up cold with a side of legal paperwork. Now, I gotta ask you, where do you draw the line? Should HOAs have the power to seize or reclaim private property, even for the so-called greater good? Have you ever stood up to someone misusing their authority? Or did you let it slide? Drop your own story or your take on justice in the comments. I read every one, and trust me, I know I'm not the only one with an HOA horror story to tell.